Hey, this is Matt Urtz, your Madison County historian. I'm very lucky to be sitting today with Shawn Bissetta, the superintendent of the Canastota School Districts. Shawn, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Um, can you talk a little bit about when COVID-19 first kind of appeared on the district's radar, and how did you guys start to prep in advance of something that could happen?
Thanks, Matt. Good to talk to you today. Really, I think it was on the radar, a number of weeks before we actually got to the situation that we're in now of having to shut down. We meet pretty regularly as a region, our superintendent's group, and so we had certainly been having discussions. We'd been monitoring closely, information that was coming from the county and the state level. We knew that there was a possibility that we would be confronted with this type of issue. And obviously one of our primary responsibilities as superintendents of school districts is to make sure that we are planned and have an idea of how we're going to respond to these sorts of things. So several weeks before, we knew that it could be problematic for us. We were actually meeting as a group, our superintendent's group, through video conference when the governor started making the announcement that we might be closing. Yeah.
So you guys find out that you're closing. Talk about, you have this kind of sudden change. Now you got to talk to teachers, you got to talk to parents, you got to start coordinating all these different things at the same time in preparation for, we're going to be closed. We got to figure out what we're going to do in the short term and then what we're going to do in the long term.
Yeah, and it's been particularly challenging because, as you know, the closures have gone in 2-week increments.
Yeah.
So we weren't really sure how long were we going to be in this state. And so our immediate concern was, to have channels of communication out to our families and our community. We knew that we needed to have some real simple things taken care of, like, materials that students had. For example, our last day of school was Friday. When students left and staff left on Friday, they didn't know that the students wouldn't be back on Monday. So we had to come up with a plan that met the best practice guidelines as far as social distancing and people being in close proximity to one another. So that was our immediate priority was, first of all, to get the schools closed, because we thought that was the right thing to do. Because really, going back to that, there were a couple of days where there was discretion. It wasn't like before the governor closed all of the schools. There were a couple of days where counties were making different decisions at different times. And so we were trying to work in concert with Madison County. And so our first day of closure was Monday. That first week, we spent most of our time working with our staff to get a plan together of how would we disseminate and distribute materials to students. And then we had to have a process by which students and families could access essential materials that they had to do in a safe way. So that was really our initial priority. And then since that time, we've been able to settle into a pretty nice routine where we have work distributed both electronically and in hard copy. We realize that it's always probably going to be necessary to have some hard copy available because of various circumstances that families are in.
Okay.
So a lot of it is just the logistical planning of how do we get it to people? How do we do it in a safe way? How do we provide for the food and nutritional needs of our students? We've been reaching close to 700 students a day, providing food, and we were providing food for both not only the weekdays but on both weekend days for the last several weeks. So we're well over 40,000 meals served to our students since the shutdown has kicked in.
You kind of talked a little bit about how you guys adapted with the pause. Where in your mind, when all this has happened and obviously things are changing insanely quickly, where have you been really happy with your response and how people have stepped up to the plate? And are there spots where you think you guys need to improve at all?
First of all, I think there's always room for improvement. We're constantly analyzing how we can function better. I think we're really pleased in the fact that we've had our staff members and our community step up in so many ways. Our bus drivers, our cafeteria workers have done a great job of preparing the meals and getting them out to our students. Our teachers are doing a terrific job of trying to be really creative with the way that they engage students remotely. We know that this is a difficult challenge, obviously, but we think that they've really risen to the occasion. I will say, as far as how can we do better, we meet regularly with our administrative team to evaluate where are we consistent. I think we can always do a better job of having a consistent message from kindergarten through 12th grade of how do we relay that information to our families. So that's going to be a constant priority for us as we continue to move deeper into this.
Okay. Eventually, we're going to get back into a classroom setting. Are you guys working and kind of what are your thoughts and plans, hopefully, to create a safe, comfortable environment in a social distancing type of world?
We've been having those conversations. What does this look like? But we really need more of the ground rules of what is it going to look like? What are the parameters going to be? All indications point to some type of decision on that coming from the governor's office in the next few days. So we're hoping that once we have some more solid information to go by, to have a better understanding of the sort of the ground rules that we're given, that we would certainly approach that from a regional standpoint. For example, we would coordinate heavily with the other districts in the Madison, Oneida, BOCES region to try to be as consistent as possible as we implement whatever the new normal would look like as we return to school.
Okay. Do you think that COVID-19 is going to change in the long term, change the classroom setting? I mean, we live in a world where social distancing is a fairly new thing, and obviously it's something that's probably going to be with us at least for the extended future. So is it something where you guys, is it going to impact the classroom?
I think there's no doubt it's going to have an impact on the classroom. I think all of us, adults, staff, students, everybody's going to be much more conscious of how we interact with each other. Are we practicing good hygiene and social distancing? I think it's also going to change us in a lot of ways for the better, because it's made us become more creative in the way that we interact and engage people, through different means. For example, there's a whole host of opportunities that I think a spotlight is on now about how learning doesn't have to be a teacher in a classroom, right? It can look very different, and we now know that certainly kids can still learn, teachers can still teach, and there still can be a high level of engagement, even though we're not physically standing or sitting right next to each other. So I think it's opened our eyes, and I think once we get past through this rough spot, I think we'll have many more tools in our toolbox of how to further learning and collaboration in a creative way.
Awesome. Do you have anything, before we finish, do you have anything you want to say to students, parents, teachers, before we end this?
I just say, first of all, we know it's a tough time for everybody, and we know that we just want to send the message that we think our students are doing a really good job. Stick with it. There is, I think, hopefully light at the end of the tunnel. We will get past this at some point, and we'll be able to be back together. But the bottom line is we need to show strength as a community, that we're together, that, I think the big takeaway for me is we need to support each other. It's always easy to criticize or say that, student should do this, or a teacher should do that, or the superintendent maybe should do that. I think if we have the mindset that we just want to get better collectively and we want to support each other, I think that's the message. We really appreciate the support of the community. We've had so many people say, "Hey, do you need help in getting food out to kids? What do you need from us? Just tell me and I'll be there." And that's the type of community that Canastota is. We've tried to send weekly messages out. It's on our website, where we'll give a video update on the operations side of the district. What do you need to know? When is school opening? What does our continuity of learning plan look like? Those sorts of things. But we're also still trying to maintain that connection to the community by profiling people in the community who are great examples of people who have done great things and are good models for our students to look at in terms of their approach to learning and becoming better. So even though, again, it looks different, I'd encourage people to still check out those videos. We still can stay connected and still learn from each other and still push our community forward so that we can be the best that we can be collectively.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I greatly appreciate it. We wish you guys nothing but the best in the future. The school, you personally, all the teachers, thank you for doing what you're doing. I've had the opportunity to talk to a couple teachers during this process. It's amazing how resilient they are, and the same to the students that are, all this is kind of happening on the fly, and it's really different and new to them. So thank you again, and we wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you, Matt. You too. Good to talk to you.
You as well, sir.